tightly crammed. It's
Welcome to the podcast. Today's guest is one of the most controversial leaders of the modern Middle East. But this episode is not about the war. Not yet. Today, we go back to the beginning. Before the presidency, before the conflict, before the speeches and the headlines. We go back to Damascus, 1965. Today's episode, Bashar al-Assad. I was not supposed to rule. Bashar al-Assad, let us begin with a simple question. Were you born to rule Syria?
No, that may surprise people now, because history makes everything look planned. When people look back, they imagine a straight road. They imagine that from the beginning I was prepared for power. But that is not how it was. I was born on September 11th, 1965, in Damascus. I was the son of Hafez al-Assad, yes, but I was not the eldest son. I was not the main political project of the family. I was the third son. In families connected to power, this matters. The first son is watched differently. The first son is prepared differently. The first son carries expectations before he even understands them. In our family, that son was not me. It was my brother, Bassel.
Tell us about your early life in Damascus.
I grew up in Damascus, in a house where politics was always present, even when it was not directly spoken about. My father was not an ordinary man. He was a military officer, then a leader, then the president of Syria. So yes, power was around us. But that does not mean every child in the house had the same role. My brother Bassel had a very different path. He was more public, more visible. He had the image of a future leader. He was trained, prepared, introduced to the world of the military and politics. I was quieter. I studied. I lived more privately. I was not the one people looked at and said, this is the future president. At that time, I was not thinking about ruling a country. I was thinking about medicine.
You chose medicine. Why?
Medicine was a different world. It was precise, scientific. Human politics is full of noise. Medicine is focused. In medicine, you do not speak to crowds. You speak to one patient. You do not command an army. You examine symptoms. You do not deal with slogans. You deal with the body, with pain, with diagnosis. I studied at Damascus University in the Faculty of Medicine. In 1988, I graduated. My specialty was ophthalmology, eye medicine. The eye is a small organ, but it carries a person's world. Sight, clarity, darkness, fear, recognition. At that stage of my life, I was not standing in front of maps of the Middle East. I was studying vision.
That sounds very far from the presidency.
It was. People today may find it strange, but my life could have gone in a completely different direction. I could have remained a doctor. I could have lived away from the center of power. I could have built a medical career, and for some time, that seemed possible.
In 1992, you went to London.
Yes. In 1992, I traveled to London to continue my medical training in ophthalmology. London was different from Damascus. Different weather, different streets, different rhythm, different political atmosphere. For me, it was a period of learning, a period of distance. The distance from Syria, distance from the palace, distance from the expectations placed on my family. I was living as a doctor in training, not as an heir, not as a political figure, not as someone preparing to rule.
Did you imagine while you were in London that you would one day become president?
No. The path was not mine. The path belonged to Bassel.
Let us talk about your brother, Bassel.
Bassel was the one many people expected to succeed. My father, he was the eldest son. He had the military image. He was confident, known, and present. In Syria at that time, the idea of succession was not officially discussed in the way people discuss elections in other systems, but inside the system, people understood signals. They saw who appeared in public, they saw who was being prepared, and they saw who carried the image of continuity. That person was Bassel, not me.
How did that affect you?
It gave me space, because if you are not the chosen one, people watch you differently. There is less pressure, less attention, less expectation. I could be a doctor. I could be quieter, but history changed in one moment.
January 1994. What happened?
In January 1994, my brother Bassel died in a car accident near Damascus International Airport. One moment, the future had a certain shape. The next moment, it was broken. His death was not only a family tragedy, it was a political earthquake, because Bassel was not just a son. He was the man many believed would come after Hafez al-Assad. When he died, the question became unavoidable. Who comes next? Yes, I was called back from London. My medical training was interrupted. The quiet life I had been living ended. I returned to Syria, and from that moment, everything changed.
Touchdown confirmed, runway clear.
When you returned, what changed first?
The atmosphere around me changed. Before I was Bashar, the doctor. After Bassel's death, I became Bashar, the possibility. People looked at me differently. Officials looked at me differently. Military men looked at me differently. I was no longer simply a son of the president. I was being prepared, and preparation in a system like Syria is not symbolic. It is military, political, security-related, public. I had to enter the world that my brother had been trained for.
Were you ready?
Readiness is a complicated word. Was I trained from childhood like Bassel? No. Was I originally meant for that role? No. But after 1994, the system moved quickly, and I moved with it.
How were you prepared?
First came the military path. In Syria, leadership is deeply connected to the army. No one can rule without the acceptance of the military and security institutions. So I entered military life. I went through training. I received ranks. I was moved upward quickly. Eventually, I became a colonel in the Republican Guard. This was important. It showed the system that I was not just a doctor returning from London. I was becoming part of the military structure.
But military rank alone was not enough.
No. We pressed. Towel. There were political files too. I began to be introduced to important matters inside and outside Syria. One of the major files at that time was Lebanon. Syria had deep influence there, and understanding that file was part of understanding regional power. I also became connected to internal issues, corruption, technology, modernization. A new image was being built around me.
In the late 1990s, many people began to see you as a modern figure, young, educated, interested in computers and the internet. Was that image real?
Images in politics are never simple. I was young compared to the old generation of leadership. I had studied medicine. I had lived in London. I was interested in technology. So yes, there were real elements, but politics also shapes images. I needed people to see me as the future, not only as the son of Hafez al-Assad, but as someone who could represent change. I became associated with technology and the introduction of the internet into Syria. I was also linked to campaigns described as fighting corruption. For many Syrians, especially young people, this created hope. They thought maybe a younger leader would bring openness. Maybe he would modernize the country. Maybe he would reduce corruption. Maybe he would be different.
Were you different?
At that time, people wanted to believe difference was possible, but wanting change and changing a system are not the same thing. A state is not moved by slogans. A system has institutions, interests, fears, alliances, and old habits. Still, before 2000, the image was clear. I was presented as the young doctor who could become a modern leader.
As the years passed, your father's health declined.
Yes, my father had ruled Syria for nearly 3 decades. His presence shaped everything. The state, the army, the party, the security services, foreign policy, the way people understood authority. But time moves even around powerful men. By the late 1990s, everyone knew the question of succession was approaching. No one could ignore it. The system had to prepare for the moment after Hafez al-Assad. And after Bassel's death, I had become the center of that preparation.
The people inside the regime accept you easily?
Acceptance in politics is not always emotional. Sometimes people accept because they believe in you. Sometimes they accept because the system tells them to. Sometimes they accept because stability matters more to them than personal opinion. By 2000, the direction was clear.
June 10th, Duhaisen.
On June 10, 2000, Hafez al-Assad died. My father was gone. For Syria, it was the end of an era. For the system, it was the most dangerous moment, transition. In many countries, the death of a long-ruling leader can open a struggle. Generals may compete, officials may hesitate. Institutions may fracture, enemies may test the state. But in Syria, the transition moved very quickly. Very quickly.
There was a constitutional problem.
Yes, the constitution required the president to be at least 40 years old. I was 34. So the constitution was amended. The age requirement was changed from 40 to 34. It happened urgently. The message was unmistakable. The system had chosen continuity, and I was at continuity.
After that, you were promoted and placed at the head of the armed forces.
Yes, I was elevated in rank and appointed commander of the army and armed forces. That step mattered because it connected the political transition to the military institution. And then came the referendum. In July 2000, I officially became president of the Syrian Arab Republic. I was 34 years old. A few years earlier, I had been in London studying ophthalmology. Now I was president. That is the strange thing about history. Sometimes a life changes slowly. Sometimes it changes with one phone call. For me, it changed first with Bassel's death, and then with my father's death. And by 2000, the quiet doctor was gone. A president had taken his place.
When people look at your rise now, they often describe you as the accidental heir. Is that accurate?
In one sense, yes. I was not the original heir. Bassel was. I did not begin my adult life as a military commander or political leader. I began as a doctor. My path to power was created by events I did not control. But after those events happened, choices were made. The system chose, my family chose, the institutions moved, and I accepted the path. So was it accidental? The beginning? Yes. The continuation? No.
What should viewers understand about the years before 2000?
They should understand that power is not only about ambition. Sometimes it is about inheritance. Sometimes it is about crisis. Sometimes it is about institutions protecting themselves. Before 2000, I was not yet the man the world would later argue about. I was a son, a doctor, a brother who lost his brother, a man called back from another life. Then I became the face of a system older than me. And in July 2000, that system placed me at the top.
Bashar al-Assad was born in Damascus in 1965. He studied medicine. He became an ophthalmologist. He went to London. He was not supposed to inherit power. But in 1994, Bassel al-Assad died. Bashar returned. Over the next 6 years, he was prepared militarily, politically, and publicly. Then in June 2000, Hafez al-Assad died. The constitution was changed, the system moved, and Bashar al-Assad became president. The doctor became ruler. But the biggest question was still ahead. Would he change Syria? Or would Syria's system change him? This was episode 1, Bashar al-Assad. I was not supposed to rule. In episode 2, the early promises, the Damascus Spring, the hopes of reform, and the first signs that the old system was still alive.